Despite the fact that Trump is trying to tell us that the economy is great and that things are going so well out here, there's a growing number, ladies and gentlemen, of men in rural communities that have given up on trying to work. And despite all of the good things that we're hearing about the job market, this is happening in a lot of rural communities across the country. This came out in NPR December 5th, 2019. And I'm going to go ahead and play this audio.
These days, there is this paradox in the job market. The unemployment rate is as low as it's been in a half century, but men in their prime working years are much more likely to be unemployed than they once were. 10 years after the Great Recession, many men have fallen through the cracks of the labor force, especially in rural areas. Here's NPR's Jim Zarroli.
It's mid-afternoon on a sunny autumn day, but David Pierce is doing what he often does, sitting inside at his dining room table. He lives in the sleepy New York town of Appalachian. Until a few years ago, Pierce was busy and active. He worked as a chef and caterer. He did community theater. Then, in his mid-50s, he was sidelined by diabetes. He had to have part of a foot removed.
My health just went kind of really downhill. It really took a turn for the worse. I couldn't maintain even a part-time schedule.
Now he spends his days listening to classical music and surfing the net.
Yeah, he's changed a lot. But we can't do what we did together. That's the thing that makes it the harder. And of course, it's wearing on, on a marriage when you're not doing things together. And that's it, obviously it's why you get married. You want to have a partner.
And with David not working, money's tight. Lana is a retired school librarian, but she's gone back to work temporarily. They're having to sell a rental house they own. A year ago, Pierce went on disability, officially leaving the workforce for good. He's got plenty of company. The job market has rebounded sharply from a decade ago, but economist Melissa Carney of the University of Maryland says men ages 25 to 54 are still less likely to be employed than they once were.
The employment rate among these prime age men is still far below what it was in the 80s and 70s.
In 1968, about 95% of men in their prime years were working. Today, even in a tight labor market, it's just 86%. Carney says this decline has been almost entirely among those with a high school diploma or less, or maybe a bit of college. These men once worked at the same rate as college graduates. Jonathan DeMarco hasn't had full-time work since 2006, when he was let go from a metal fabricating plant. He still looks for a regular job.
Last one, Lowe's down in Oneonta. I told them right out, I was honest, that I have problems reading and writing, and I think that's the reason why they didn't hire me.
DeMarco has leathery skin and thick gray hair that stands up like a rooster's coxcomb. He concedes he's not well suited to today's workplace. He doesn't like email. He can't understand why they won't let you smoke at work anymore. So he picks up odd jobs whenever he can find them. Like a lot of men in his situation, he depends on his wife to get by. She works in a factory.
Her health is not the greatest. She was out of work the end of last year, the beginning of this year for 4 or 5 months. That put us way behind in the bills. It's really hard.
DeMarco lives in Schoharie County in the hilly farm country of upstate New York. The county's unemployment rate is a very low 3.8%. But Gail Breen, executive director of a local employment office, says the numbers mask a larger problem. Factories have closed over the years. Many men stopped looking for work a long time ago, which means the government doesn't even count them as part of the workforce anymore.
There are a lot of hidden people in those numbers that don't have jobs.
Like a lot of rural places, this part of New York State doesn't have much public transportation. So even if you find a job, it can be tough to get to work. 40-year-old Frank Alteri lives in Owego, a quaint Victorian town along the Susquehanna River. He hasn't worked full-time since he got out of prison 4 years ago.
Well, today it's pretty much dead around here. There's hardly no work around here. One restaurant that's sitting up here on North Ave, he told me if I can get a car, I can do deliveries for him. And I give like 20% of that.
But he has no car, and he's not likely to get one anytime soon. Alteri points out that if he works, he and his wife could lose their food stamps and monthly disability check. So unless the pay is decent, it doesn't make much sense to get a job. In the past, men like Alteri could move to big cities to find work. They'd make more money there. But economist Melissa Carney says that's not true anymore.
The wage premium for cities that everyone used to get, even that's disappeared for the non-college educated.
Carney says a high school graduate in New York City or Boston doesn't earn much more than someone in a rural area, and the city's a lot more expensive, so it doesn't make sense to move. On the other hand, having a job is not just about making money. Back in his dining room, David Pierce says that as a chef, he used to spend all day on his feet cooking. Now he barely has the energy to make breakfast, and he's not really trained for office work. He struggled with depression. He doesn't sleep well.
I think, for a man, it was disabling in the fact that my career was my identity, who I am. And to lose that really affected me. I no longer could identify as, the guy that was a wonder with food.
The job market may be booming in much of the country right now, but a growing number of men in the prime of their lives have stopped working, and that can take a psychic toll. Jim Zaroli, NPR News.
Ladies and gentlemen, so now you got this issue out in rural America with a growing number of men that are not even working. Wow. It is just so many things happening. I did a story yesterday. The banks are now shutting their doors in rural America. He said it's not enough traffic coming into the banks to even justify keeping them open in these rural communities. So now these folks are forced to go further out to even do their banking. And they already have a doctor shortage. Hospitals in rural communities are closing. The maternity wards are closing because there's simply not enough people having babies. So you see so much decline going on in these areas across America. And it's only going to get worse. Now you got a community full of men that are not working. Ooh, it just seems like every story is just getting worse by the minute. When you hear about what's going on in these rural communities, and they're saying the decline in male workers is concentrated almost entirely among men with high school diplomas or less, or even a bit of college. So a lot of these, what they call prime age men, are just sitting around and they simply are not working at all. And you heard what he said. He doesn't really want a job because then he loses the welfare and food stamps that they get. Whatever happened to pull yourself up by the bootstraps? I guess somebody didn't give him the memo. So now men in rural communities, as you can see on this chart, from 1968 to 2019, it has been a decline of men just being in the workforce in these rural areas. Y'all gonna have to tell me what you think about this one. This is deep. But, they try to ignore these people over in rural areas, because they are your more poor whites in the country. But please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.